Okay. Welcome everybody, and welcome to Peak Progress seminar dedicated to the theme of sustainability. I'm very happy to be able to, that everybody's here, and I'm very happy that many people showed up. A few words about myself and the title that I work for. My name is Vincent Terbeek. I'm editor of Peak Progress, and I'll be the host of this session today, which will last roughly 75 minutes, I think. And we have three expert speakers for you. We'll start with Dr. Sakdeep Anulosombat of Betagrow. I hope I pronounced that well. Yes. Dr. Lena Hubert-Birk-Hansen on behalf of Novonesis, and then Dr. Grant Walling on behalf of Topics Norsvin. A few words about sustainability, because it is a word that is often used, perhaps even too often. But what does it mean exactly? Does it mean welfare? Does it mean environment? Does it mean quality nutrition? Or do we have to look at it from a financial perspective, perhaps? I tend to think that the definition depends on the speaker. And the good news is we have three speakers today, so you get three definitions of sustainability today. Before we start, a few quick words. Every presentation will last roughly 15 to 20 minutes, and after the presentation there is time for some question and answer, so make sure you have them ready. And after that we will wrap them up with a few wise words. And now I'm very pleased to introduce the first eminent speaker, Dr. Sakdeep Anulosombat, Vice President of the Corporate Innovation Office at Betagrow, one of Thailand's largest swine integrators. And the integration is always aiming to strive for top quality and attaches much value to maintaining that position. So no wonder it is interesting to hear how this leading integrator thinks about sustainability. Yeah. The floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm very excited to share with you with the Betagrow commitments in the smart and sustainable pig farming. Yes. Oops. Oh. Okay. Yes. ใช่ไหมได้อยู่เนอะ So I think I can just continue. So first, let me introduce the Betagrow. So Betagrow is a trust agro and food corporations dedicated to enrich people life with the better food. So we operate across the various sectors, including agro-business, livestock, protein and food business, international business, and we also have a pet business as well. Yes, our goal is to ensure that every product we deliver contribute to the sustainable life. And our purpose is to provide the highest food safety standards and superior quality and deliciousness, fair price, and of course sustainable productions. Let's into our smart and sustainable pig farming initiatives. At the Betagrow, we believe that innovation is the key to achieve sustainability. And our approach integrated advanced technology to ensure that the highest standards and animal welfare, environmental responsibility, and the food safety. Leverage data analytics and automations and also sustainable practices. We aim to reduce our carbon footprints while maintaining superior product quality. This is not a benefit to the environment only, but to ensure that our customers receive the best possible products. So this is, let's talk about the alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals. So Betagrow is a commit to contribute the global standards efforts. Our practice are designed to support this goal by promoting responsible consumptions and productions and climate actions and life on land. So looking ahead, we will continue to innovate and collaborate with stakeholders to drive positive change in the agro and food industry. So first, let's talk about food safety and food quality. We aim, by the way, 2027, we would like to achieve 100% antimicrobial resistance study across for specific microbe, referring to from WHO. In our SPL chicken and pig products. Yeah. Additional, we targeting 50% of antibiotic use in our livestock productions. This effort to ensure that our products are not only safe but also contribute to the global health, combating antimicrobial resistance. Next, we will have a sustainable packaging by 2030. Our goal is transitions to 100% of eco-friendly packaging. This initiative is part of our broader strategies to reduce environmental impact and promote the circular economies. Moving on the occupational health and safety, we commit to achieve the zero lost time incident by 2026. This means that we are dedicated to create a safe working place for our employees, ensuring that their well-being is a top priority. In terms of the communities, development, by 2025, we aim to create value for about 20,000 households around the facilities of the Betaco around Thailand. And this involves supporting local communities through various initiatives, enhance their quality of life and economical stability. Lastly, let's discuss about the climate change management. By 2030, we plan to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by more than 20% under Scope 1 and 2. Looking further ahead, the goal to achieve the net zero by 2050 under Scope 1, 2, and 3. This target is our commitment to mitigating climate change and contribute to the sustainable planet. In conclusion, so the Betaco Sustainable Development Goals are testaments to our dedication to quality, safety, community, and environmental stewardship. Together, we are building a further that is not only for prosperous, but also sustainable for next generation as well. Yeah. And let's focus on the topic on the food quality and safety. Because of the time is quite limited, so we can't go through all pillars. Highlighting this one, I think you probably have seen it already. Highlight the critical history of the antibiotics and the growing challenge of the AMR. So the timeline shows that the discovery of antibiotics starting with the penicillin in the 1940s, followed by the other crucial antibiotics like tetracycline, vancomycin, and more. However, as antibiotics were introduced, resistance began to emerge. And as you see in that aspharamine resistance, syphilis in the 1924, and also methicillin resistant staphylococcus is started already in 1960. So AMR is a significant global health threat because it renders antibiotics ineffectively, making infection harder to treat. Also, you can see that the colistin is considered as a last resource antibiotics for multi-drug resistance, gram-negative pathogens. So this underscores the urgency addressing AMR through responsible antibiotic use, innovation, and global collaboration. For the Betaco, this is the first priorities that we use, AMU, antimicrobial use, and antimicrobial resistance as our priority in our food safety. Yeah. And how AMU or AMR impact on the sustainable goal. So first, let's look about the impact on AMR SDG goal number 2. So livestock production is in low-income countries expected that the most effect with the AMR. So they have a statistic show the potential of 17% loss in the production by 2030. So under the high AMR impact scenarios, this is particularly concerning because of animal protein is crucial for the nutrition for the vulnerable populations. Next, understand with the key issue SDG goal number 3. I think you have heard mostly on this one, no? Effective antibiotic is essential for treating infections, but antibiotic resistance is a significant risk for the patient undergoing cancer treatments, recovering from the surgeries, and or even the patient with the diabetics who has to deal with the cancer, ulcer, especially vulnerable life-threatening infections due to AMR. And another one's factors like when we're talking about AMR, there are links between AMR and climate change as a SDG goal number 13. Livestock farming had been identified as a key factors connecting AMR and climate change. So higher temperature can lead to increased bacterial growth rate and also more frequent in genes transfer of AMR genes, and emerging of new pathogen is also a problem. So additionally, SDG goal number 12, highlighting responsible consumption and productions. Unfortunately, there are a prediction that within 2030, there are predicted that animal production will use a lot of antibiotics, increase by 70%. It's quite amazing because it's quite amazing in terms of nowadays people talking about reducing using of antibiotics, but the statistic prediction in the 2030 said it will rise 70% of usage. So these probably antibiotics in the agriculture is increased due to a demand of the meat in the future, and underscore the urgent need for sustainable practice to mitigate the trends. Yeah. And finally, for the SDG goal 17, addressing the challenge of the collaborations, because it is important due to AMR is a very complex issue. So not only one person can deal with this problem. So you need to emphasize important partnerships and require interdisciplinary and multi-stakeholder response. So I think that this is an impact on the AMR in terms of a SDG goal. ไม่สามารถอ๋ออันนี้ไม่เห็นเนาะโอเค sorry and okay, so this is a study of the AMR in swine in Thailand done by the Department of Microbiology, Faculty Medicine, Sirilat Hospital, Mahidol University in Bangkok, Thailand. So this study shows that the antibiotic use in pig farming affecting antibiotic resistance. Researchers test pig fecals from the farms. They separate farm into 3 groups, high, limited, and no antibiotic use. The results show that more overuse of antibiotics, more resistant of the bacteria, resistant genes. So reducing of antibiotic use in the farming help control resistance, protecting both animal and human health. So this is a study, and probably in Thailand now there are more study like this is coming. Yeah, and let's look about the Betago journey. So our journey began with a significant milestone in banning harmful substance. We start with no beta agonist And then initiative, the bands, we started SPF pig farms called specific pathogen-free farms, following by the fluoroquinolone, cephalosporin third and fourth generations, antibiotic growth promoter, and also ban nitrofuran chloramphenicol. Lately, we banned also the colistin using in our pig productions. Yeah. So this ban is a crucial step to ensure that the health and the safety of the livestock and the quality of our products, measuring that promoting by the animal welfare and reducing the antibiotics. And of course, with our efforts of doing journeys, so we have been recognized by the NSF. So to certify our products SPL, pig, egg, and chickens raised without antibiotics and no antibiotic ever. This certification is our commitment to producing high-quality antibiotics-free products. So you see the timeline, 1995, early step toward responsible farming, and 2016, so we banned all the highly priority critical important antibiotics. 2017, so we achieved less without antibiotics, and 2019, we also further go to the antibiotic-free practices. With those work, we didn't work alone. So we have a partnership and a collaboration. So it is very essential for this topic. So we work closely with the stakeholders, including academic institutes, government agency, and also private sector to conduct the AMR. So our collaboration involved in the research projects. For example, like we study a phenotypic studies, MIC test and genotypic study, including whole genome sequencing. Those we done with the academics like Civil Hospital and also a veterinarian's faculty medicine of Chulalongkorn University. This study helped to understand the resistant patterns and the genetic factor contribute to AMR. Also, we focus on knowledge sharing and leverage expertise across the different sectors. So we also working together with the farms, slaughterhouse, and also the BSC called Betaco Science Center, doing the work of the projects, isolating bacteria and gathering data to inform our strategies. And from this collaboration effort, we aim to develop effective solutions combating to AMR and promoting sustainable farming practice. Let's talk about the challenge of our experience by doing such a project. So workforce challenge. Combating to AMR, we need a workforce that understands both the business and the stakeholders. This requires a shift from skill-based competency to analytical competency for fostering innovations and active learner who can adapt to the new challenge. Next, innovative practice. This is a very crucial. So we need to looking for something that protect the infections like immunity, technology, bacterial vaccines to promote health of the animals, or automations like detecting illness early. If there are, for example, like the motions or pictures or optic flow that can detect the movement of the animal in the farms to decide that if there is an illness identification or not. Yeah, and it is possible, hopefully possible to develop the stop of the expressions of the resistant genes of the bacteria. And come back to the economic considerations, farm management and animal welfare is ensuring that the competent people, healthy animals, is environmental, is all together with the biosecurity from the farm. And also use of the antibiotics, because at the moment the antibiotic use on farm is quite limited. So hopefully that we find the antibiotic which is considering of the cost and availability of the antibiotics to ensure the quantity and quality use of the antibiotics in the animals. and the key actions for the sustainable pig farming. So we consider there are 4 key actions. First one is the animal welfare. So we also implement the group housing and cage-free environment in the farms. Smart animal living, so we trying to utilize the automations, for example, like the ventilations, alarm, digital control system, and also operational farms dashboards. So the management can just look at the dashboard and see the overall picture of the farm management throughout Thailand. Yeah. And the smart animal feedings, we employ automatic feeding system for both individual and group house, yeah, and smart operations. For example, like digital identifications, smart monitorings, and quality check, digital wagings, and as I mentioned earlier, the digital war rooms for the management to use the data and analyzing and do the comprehensive farm management. So last slide, the SPL, if you are not familiar with the brand, so we are the super premium food brands and focusing on the delivery, high quality, safe food products to ensure that better food access to all, focus on the environmental sustainability. And you can find the SPL products from both pork, chicken meat, and eggs in the supermarket near you. So if you have time and have a chance to go to the supermarket in the department store, so maybe you can looking for this brand as well. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sakdeed. Very interesting presentation. In the audience, are there questions? If not, I do have a question.
Yes, please.
If permitted.
If we have time.
we have time for a few questions. I was wondering, does Betagro also include the message of no antibiotics used in its marketing towards the market, and how do Thai consumers respond to that?
Okay, so I think there are many market sectors. So some understand if they are looking for raised without antibiotics, but some I do believe that perceptions of their product, they said if the product is safe to consume, even they are using the antibiotic with the withdrawal period and monitor with no antibiotic residues, so they also accept those as safe products as well. Yeah, so they are not looking further, like they can't find link at the moment, like if the animal using antibiotic, even there is no antibiotic residues, that is a food safety, but it can relate it to antimicrobial resistance, which may affect to their health. This is still missing link, yeah, and we hope that in the future we probably will be able to communicate those parts to make understanding more, yeah.
I see. Thank you. You also mentioned greenhouse gas emissions briefly in the beginning, and since we're talking about sustainability, I thought that would be interesting to ask about. You mentioned you want to be zero in 2050. Could you share some practical measures that Betagro is taking to get there?
Okay. So actually we have a office called Sustainable Office. So they are quite centralized and looking for the directions and targets, and they talk to the corporates because net zero is not only for the pig, no, it's related to the primary productions like feed productions, farm, and slaughters. So they define the target and they define where is the gap. So they do gap analysis, yes. And they will see what kinds of actions or intervention need to close the gap. And they also put the target between years so they can monitor how it's reduced every year, yes.
I see. One last look in the audience. Anybody? Look at that.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. Just a question, in the natural products or never ever antibiotic products, do you use any natural alternative to reduce the load of pathogenic bacteria? Do you use something else natural?
Yes. So there are studies and trying to use like herbs, uh, another raw materials that they think it help to reduce the antibiotics or can also prevent with the bacterial infections. They also do another like controlling biosecurity and also studying for the vaccine. Yeah, so they are kind of holistic approach. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Please join me in giving him a great round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then I would like to ask Dr. Lea Hubertsberg-Hensen to join me on stage here. She's the Global Technical Product Manager Swine at Novonesis, and she shall be focusing on leveraging microbial solutions for sustainable pig farming and without compromising efficiency.
Thank you, Vincent. Do we have a new timer? All right, thanks for the kind introduction. And let's see if we can get this one working. Oh, here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And yes, as Vincent said, today I will talk a little bit about how we can leverage microbial solutions to improve sustainability in pig farming. I don't have the slides here. But we will move on while they try to fix that. So before I jump into the presentation, I wanted first to introduce to you our company, because you might not know Novonesis yet, as we just celebrated our 1-year birthday. So we are actually not a new company, but we are a company that has been established 1 year ago from 2 Danish biotechnology companies, so Novozymes and Christian Hansen. And even though we are a quite new company, we still leverage more than 100 years of innovation in our backbone. And at Novonesis, we really consider that sustainability is at our core. And this is what we do. And we believe that biosolutions are life's own agents of change. And it all starts with understanding the building blocks of nature, and biosolutions such as enzymes and probiotics, we can use those for many different modes of actions to sustain life on Earth. We believe that harnessing these natural solutions will help us build a sustainable future within the agricultural industry. All right, so as Vincent said, we all define sustainability different, and for my presentation I also wanted first to give a definition on what I believe is the definition of sustainability. We can say it's built on 3 different pillars, just like Vincent said. So we have the social pillar, we have the environmental pillar, and the economic pillar. And I believe that all of those needs to be present in order to have a sustainable production of pigs. If we go into pig farming, I have sort of divided it into further categories. So we have the efficient use of resources, we have animal welfare, economic viability, and also reduced environmental impact. And I thought it would be fun to maybe ask artificial AI to come up with an idea of how could that look like in the future of pig production. And this is what it gave me. And I think it's quite interesting because this is built with the current knowledge. Today we have solutions that work. We also have some technologies that are under development. And this picture kind of shows how we can use, efficient energy use, this kind of vertical farming, AI to have surveillance of the pigs, and automatic feeding systems, drones in the air, and so forth. So I think maybe this is the future, maybe not. I don't know. It looks a little bit crazy, but still, yeah. But let's go back to the present and talk a little bit about microbial solutions. And with microbial solutions, I am talking about probiotics. Probiotics are live microorganisms that, when administered in adequate amounts to the host, they can have a health benefit. Okay, so if we look at the role on how microbial solutions can promote a sustainable production of pigs, and we take these 4 different topics once again, there are lots of studies that show, for example, that we can have a more efficient use of local feed ingredients. At the same time, studies have showed that microbial solutions can go in and influence the welfare by reducing aggression levels of, for example, loose sows in the gestation unit, for example, or it can also go in and reduce the level of stress so that the pig is more healthy and performing better. Then we have the economic viability, and here lots of studies, of course, show that probiotics can go in and improve the performance so that we have a higher efficiency. And finally, looking into the environmental impact, we can see that from some studies we can reduce emissions of gases coming from the pig production. So today, in my talk, I will look into the following 2 topics. So the use of local feed ingredients, also what we call ingredient substitution, and also the reduction of gas emissions. So starting with the first topic, here I will talk about how we can leverage these microbial solutions to substitute ingredients in the diet, but without compromising efficiency of the pig. And why would we do that? Why would we substitute one ingredient from another? Well, that really depends on the situation. You might want to do it because you want to lower the environmental impact, so reducing maybe the transport time for soybean being imported into your production. You might also do it because today it's a very volatile world, and we have sometimes not availability of ingredients. So we need to change. And the final one, of course, would also be if you potentially want to reduce cost. So there are many drivers as to why you want to look into this. But before jumping into ingredient substitution, I wanted to discuss a little bit about why do we have the ability to use these microbial solutions in this topic. So probiotics, specifically bacilli, those are spores, they are very resistant, can go into all different kinds of diets. And then the cool thing is really also that they are kind of an enzyme factory. So these guys, the bacilli, they are natural, they are bacteria, and they produce enzymes. But they are also rather self-centered. They have a big ego. They only produce enzyme for their own survival. And they produce enzymes based on the substrate that is available in their environment. So the production of enzymes really depends on which type of diet you're feeding. And that can help to overcome these ingredient fluctuations, both when it comes to the composition of the diet, but also if you look more into the nutritional components. So those bacilli can in principle help the pig to utilize the feedstuff to a higher extent. But not all bacilli are the same. Not even all Bacillus subtilis are the strain. Strain. It's because strain matters. One Bacillus subtilis can be very different from another Bacillus subtilis. And one Bacillus subtilis may have the genes to be able to have a high production of enzymes, some may not. And that is what I'm showing you on this graph, where I show the secretion of cellulase coming from 15 different Bacillus subtilis strains. So of course, if you want to have an efficient probiotic product, you need to select the one that has the best capabilities to produce the specific enzymes that you are interested in. Another important thing I wanted to mention is if we look here into the protease activity, different probiotic products can have the ability to increase the secretion of protease, which is shown here. But what is also important is to ensure that the pigs receive the right amount of product in their diet. So if the dosage included in the diet is so low that you don't get enough of this protease activity, what does it help? So I think it's two important aspects to consider when talking about the enzyme production. And we know that a lot of proteases will ensure a better utilization of protein. And that leads me to some in vitro results that we are looking into, because we are trying to see if our probiotic solution can utilize feed ingredients to different extents. And in this in vitro assay, we're looking into the amount of additional soluble protein that is being released from a specific protein ingredient when we are adding the probiotic solution. And as you can see here, it depends really on the ingredient, on how much additional protein that could be released when adding the probiotic product. And that's what is leading us into looking into this ingredient approach, as we call it, where we replace one ingredient with another. So I wanted to take you through one recent study that I carried out, which was in Spain in a commercial-like setting. We had 3 different treatment groups, 16 pigs per pen, and this was a grower-finisher study, so from 30 kilos until slaughter time. In this study, we had 3 different treatment groups. We had first what I call the positive control group. So this was a group where they received a standard commercial diet according to the Spanish guidelines. And then the second group was a negative control group where we did this ingredient substitution. So we replaced 5% of the soybean meal with 5% of rapeseed meal, because rapeseed is more locally produced in Europe, or canola meal, as you might also know it. The consequence of doing such an ingredient substitution is that we get a lower content of crude protein and amino acids. And then we have the third treatment group, which is what I call the Novonesis probiotic group. And that is basically the negative control diet, so the ingredient substitution, but with the addition of the probiotic product, BioPlus, at the standard commercial inclusion rate. In this table, you see the overview of the nutritional composition, and I also wanted just to underline that the energy level is the same in the 2 different types of diets. We hypothesized first that the positive control group would perform better than the one where we are substituting the ingredient. And then, of course, we hypothesized in the end that the Novonesis probiotic would maintain the performance, so perform equally to treatment group 1. So jumping into the results, first here showing the body weight of the pigs, first after 40 days of trial, so after the grower feeding period, and then at the end of the study. And what we see is, first of all, that there is a significant difference between the Novonesis group and the negative control group, both after 40 days of trial, and in the end we see the same tendency, and then with the positive control group performing intermediately. Looking into average daily gain during the grower period, which is when we had the biggest effect of the ingredient substitution, we again see the same results where the Novonesis probiotic group is performing similar to treatment 1 or better than treatment 2. And the same we see again reflected into the feed conversion ratio. And why are they performing better? Well, we also looked into the digestibility of both dry matter and crude protein in this study. And again, you see that including the probiotic into this diet where we have done the ingredient substitution, we see a significant improvement in both dry matter and crude protein fecal digestibility. And just important for me to mention, there were no impact on the carcass results doing this substitution. So in conclusion, we see that this probiotic from Novonesis could maintain the performance when we substituted 5% of soybean meal with rapeseed meal. And another important thing you can do is you can do some calculations here, because the Novonesis pigs, they performed similar as to the positive control pigs. But as you remember, the crude protein level was lower. So you can actually do some calculations here and get to the results that feeding this diet, this negative control diet with the ingredient substitution, we can actually lead to an 8% reduction in the emission of nitrogen. Okay, and talking about emissions, my final topic for today is about gas emissions and specifically emission of ammonia. When we talk about emission of ammonia, it's super crucial to maintain the level of nitrogen within the pig. We don't want it to be excreted via the feces or the urine so that it can be converted into the gas and go in and have an environmental impact. First of all, we know that adding the Novonesis probiotic, we can go in and influence the digestibility of the feed, including the digestibility of protein. But it's not enough just to improve that, because if you have a too high amount of amino acids that are not available for the pig, if you're overfeeding of protein, or if you just have this poor digestibility, you often still have some excretion of nitrogen via the urine. And that is as big a factor when we talk about the conversion into ammonia. So that's why it's important to both have an improved digestibility, but the right amino acids has to be available for the pig to utilize them and not excrete them via urine, and actually use them for growth and to maintain their system. So we see that nitrogen is both is retained in the body when Novonesis product is fed to the pigs. And looking into studies where we have measured the emission of gases. So this was the first study, which was carried out quite some time ago at a university. Here they collected both urine and feces from pigs over a 5 days period. And then they went into a laboratory where they sort of mimicked the fermentation parts happening in slurry. And here we could see that the samples collected from pigs that had received the Novonesis Bacillus probiotic, they had a significantly lower ammonia emission coming from these samples. And then recently, last year, we repeated this study, but in a more commercial-like setting, so in a grow-finisher farm, where we had installed these gas emission measurements. So we measured gases every 15 minutes. And then you can see here that the emission of ammonia was reduced significantly by 7% in the pigs that were fed the Novonesis probiotic during the full grow finisher period. Okay, so a few key points that I would love for you to remember when leaving this room. So first of all, we believe that microbial solutions are key when it comes to ensuring a sustainable pig production, both because we can enable the use of more local feed ingredients, we can improve animal welfare, we can increase the production efficiency, but also reduce gas emissions. And I think looking into consumer patterns, we know from a recent study that consumers, they might prefer to pay more for a welfare component and not necessarily for an environmental impact component. But if you have a biosolution that can sort of touch upon all these components at the same time, then you are really working towards a more sustainable future. And talking about Bacillus probiotics, I think it's important to remember that these guys, they are here and they naturally produce enzymes to survive. But the production of enzymes really depends on the local environment that is available, but also on their genetic potential to do so. And I think it's important to remember that when you look into finding the right probiotic product. We believe we can leverage these microbial solutions to substitute ingredients without compromising the performance of the pig. And whether that is for reasons when it comes to cost efficiency or environmental impact or just availability of ingredients, we think this is a quite interesting way to look at a pig feed formulation. And finally, gas emissions. We believe that microbial solutions are part of solving this issue where we actually have a high environmental impact from the pig production. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I really hope that you would like to come and visit the Novonesis booth in Hall 3, booth 4410.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I always like it when I see letters that I don't need my glasses for. Well done. Audience, are there any questions for Leah? If not, I would be interested. You mentioned about this this trial that you did with a positive and a negative, and what if you used the bacillus in the positive trial? Have you
In the positive control?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Well,
would,
that would be a standard way of using probiotics, right? That's what we call on top.
Yeah.
And that's where you would see, improvements in performance and so forth. You would probably, the diet would contain the same amount of nitrogen, but you would utilize the feedstuff better. So in the end, you would probably also excrete less.
yeah. So there is also a sustainability effect.
Oh,
in
for
the-
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So something completely else. You mentioned that it also leads to a reduction of ammonia, which, of course, in my country, in the Netherlands, is a big thing at the moment.
Yes.
Do you see there is interest from all over the world regarding this particular feature?
Not everywhere yet. I think it's becoming a rising problem, and more governments also put in subsidies to control this. But yeah, in some countries we're not really there yet, and that's why I think also we see it from these consumer analysis that are recently been published. And I think that's important. It's important to also kind of take another approach on this topic, so we can actually reduce the environmental impact by focusing on performance and efficiency. So I think we need to sort of get that story in, because everybody are interested in doing that. And if you do the right thing for the planet at the same time, then bonus, right?
I think so. And this problem starts in northwestern Europe, but probably it may spread. You don't know that. Last question I have, unless the audience. Oh, look at that! We have a question. Great.
You mentioned about rapeseed.
Mm-hmm.
Have you tried other locally sourced products here in ASEAN?
So we have tried looking into, for example, instead of substituting soybean, then we try to substitute wheat with rapeseed as well. We looked into substituting with sunflower meal, and now we are in the process of investigating substituting, for example, rice bran with palm kernel meal. But I would have to come back to you on the results for that one.
Or maybe coconut meal?
Coconut meal? No, but I will note it down and then look into that. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, there's another question. Now, there you go.
I'm sorry, the microphone is not working, so no.
Do you have similar data for soybean, or could you extrapolate the idea of better utilization of protein for soybean?
Okay, so utilizing the soybean better. Yeah, we do. We also have results on the fact that the bacillus can utilize the soybean better, so we have a higher release of soluble protein from that. And we also, some of the digestibility studies that we have run, soybean has been often the main crude protein ingredient. So we know that it doesn't have to be a local or a more difficult feed ingredient for the bacilli to have an impact, because again, they produce enzymes on what is available. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's leave it at this. Thank you very much, Leah. Excellent. And we move on to the last speaker of today, and that is Dr. Grant Walling, and he's Technical Business Developer Asia at Topics Northfin, and his presentation is titled Profiting from Sustainable Swine Genetics. Dr. Walling, take it away.
Thank you, Vincent. I'm just going to wait a second until the just load up the talk. Thank you to Pig Progress, and thank you to Vincent for letting us talk here, and thank you for everybody for coming. I'm going to try and actually talk to you a little bit about how breeding companies can look at sustainability and what we can do to actually help some of these sustainable goals. We've seen very nicely in the first presentation that a lot of companies are setting sustainable goals, and there's various ways they're going to get there. Some of that's going to come because of changes they make within their business, but some of it's going to come because of the changes that their suppliers are making, as well as, sort of the ingredients that you're using that you've just been hearing as well. So I'm from Topics Northfin, a Dutch breeding company. You'll probably guess from my accent that I'm not Dutch, but actually British. And I'm going to talk about how you can profit from sustainable pig genetics, because a lot of people hear the word sustainability and then think it's actually going to cost them money, that they're going to lose out. And actually, I would argue that the traits that are actually profitable for your business quite often are the same ones that will actually lead to a sustainable goal in the future. I have to put up the disclaimer so that the lawyer doesn't shoot me, but it's just saying that everything that I'm saying I believe is true, but always make sure that it's relevant for your market. I'll define sustainability. Everybody else has defined it in their own way. I will talk about how we do sustainable genetic improvement, and then talk about how that impacts on the environmental sustainability. I said everybody had their own way of defining it. Being British, I got the Oxford English Dictionary out, and I got two definitions. So sustainable is basically the ability to continue doing something over a period of time, or causing or made in a way that causes little or no damage to the environment, and therefore you can continue doing it for a long time. So those were the two definitions that I got, and therefore I've tried to sort of set things up around about there. And so when it comes to genetic improvements, actually genetics is in a good place when we start talking about sustainability, because when you go to university to study genetics, the first thing that you learn is, well, there's three things you need to learn about genetic improvement, and it's really good for people because it's permanent. The genetic progress that you make today, you don't lose from your future animals, it's actually passed on to future generations. It's cumulative, so basically any genetic gain that you made yesterday, you don't lose, but you actually add on to the top of it. So you keep moving forward. And then the last thing they always tell you is, and also genetics is sustainable. The ability to make genetic progress tomorrow is not limited by the genetic progress you've made in the past. So genetics in itself is a sustainable science that we're actually doing. We're not having to constantly reinvest or start the process again. However, when we look at the pig industry, there's certain things that aren't sustainable. Let's look at sow mortality in a couple of countries. We don't want to see lines going like that. If you extrapolate that another decade forward, it's no good having sows that are going to give you 17 born alive if they don't survive till first parity. So there are elements within the pig industry that we need to address because they're not sustainable for the future. Now, I've picked two countries out there because their figures are publicly available. There are countries where we actually see that that's level. I put the Dutch figure on there, being a Dutch company. Where basically the sow mortality is significantly lower and the line is pretty much constant. So I would suggest that it's a lot more sustainable if we actually follow the Dutch pattern rather than the other two. And the reason why I feel that the sow that we're developing is sustainable is that we're not concentrating on only one or two traits that might push us in one particular direction, but actually there's 51 traits that we're looking at any particular point in time when we select an animal. And a whole chunk of those looks at sow survivability, sow longevity, so things like the body condition score, the farrowing rates, the shoulder score, but also robustness traits as well, making sure that that sow doesn't end up with uterine prolapse. Looking at feet and leg quality. All of those are important for the sustainability of that sow in modern commercial systems. Now, because I'm putting emphasis on that, it means that I'm putting less emphasis on some of the other traits, and there's a whole load of other things that we have to work at, because that's all those things that also make you money. So we have to keep things in balance. We can also look at how we develop traits like numbers born alive. If you've got an extra pig born alive, great, that's great money for you. But that pig needs to stay alive, and to stay alive, it needs an extra teat on the sow. There is no point in having 16 piglets with only 14 nipples to feed them, because you might as well just kill those other 2 pigs on day one, and again, not a sustainable long-term solution. So part of our breeding goal is that we will only increase born alive at the same rate that we will increase the number of teats, and we actually see over time that that has led to a lower pre-weaning mortality. And what that means is that actually we don't improve born alive as fast as what we improve the numbers weaned, because actually pre-weaning mortality is coming down because we've got those extra teats. So that's in some way a couple of examples of how we try and actually make sure that our breeding goals are sustainable. And therefore, we sort of put all this together under the term balanced breeding. And essentially, balanced breeding means that we have to look at 4 Ps, 4 different priorities within our breeding goal. It's one, it's looking after the pig. Another, it's looking after the producer. After all, you all have to stay in business. We all have to be profitable in terms of our pig production. We have to look after the people. We know that labor is a challenge. And we know that consumers have various different demands. And finally, we also have to look after the planet, and that will be the next topic that I'll come on to in a minute. Our breeding goal is actually audited independently. We follow a particular code EFABAR, where they actually look at it to make sure that this is a sustainable breeding goal for the future, and that is something that we're very proud to actually sign up to, because it means that it's not just us saying that we've got a sustainable breeding goal, but actually it's someone independently saying that as well. And with part of that, we have to comply with a number of statements. And if you look in a number of those statements, it will basically point to a number of those elements of sustainability that you've heard about in the previous 2 talks. And from our point of view, we make sure that we actually comply with those. And we also, special attention is accorded to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which we heard about in the first talk from Pettigrew as well. The second element when it comes to sustainability that I talked about was about environmental sustainability. And quite often when you talk about sustainability, this is the element where a lot of people get very worried that it's actually going to cost them money, that somehow their business is going to lose out. And I said before that we have 51 different traits in our index when we're selecting our sow. Don't worry about the details, they're all on there. But we have to find a way of balancing them. How do I prioritize an animal that's going to grow faster versus an animal that's going to give me a better carcass yield at the end? How do I prioritize an animal that's got stronger front legs versus an animal that gives me lower drip loss in the slaughter plant? Well, typically the way that we do that is we work out what the economical benefit of that trait is. So for something like food conversion ratio, it's relatively simple. You can look at the change in food conversion ratio. You can work out your feed saving per pig. If you know your price of your feed, you can then work out what the value is per pig of that change. But if you're then going to look at this from an environmental point of view, the question that we actually did the exercise for the purpose of this talk is to turn around and say, well, what happens if we put in the price of CO2 equivalents at 100 euros a ton? How does that change our breeding goal and our breeding progress when we start including CO2? And the first thing that happens is you see a much higher priority in lowering FCR and a slightly lower priority on growth. So it's not the fastest animal that's the most important, it's by far the most efficient. The second thing that we see is a quite a big change to the carcass, that we actually start to see slightly less belly and less loin, and we see more ham and more shoulder. And these are essentially more muscular animals. They're shorter, more muscular animals. And typically those are the more efficient animals, so that's how it connects to that feed efficiency goal. What we also see is actually the numbers born alive actually becomes less important. So in the original goal there, actually it was going forwards. It's basically going to the point where it's sort of staying pretty the same. So basically, production levels is more important than reproduction levels. Essentially, these traits aren't particularly changing too much. And then the one that surprised me a little bit is, if you're going to die, die quickly, but preferably not at all. Because actually, on a sustainability goal, it's actually your finisher mortality that is really going to hurt you. Pigs that consume a huge amount of feed, but then die in the last few weeks of life, and never actually contribute to the food chain, are actually very, very unsustainable. So as the animal gets older, that mortality gets more and more costly, not only from a pig production point of view, but also from a sustainability point of view. And one of my other roles is looking after the meat group. I actually wanted to see what happened to the meat quality traits. Actually, we saw that actually this didn't really make too much difference on the meat quality traits. If anything, we lose a little bit of fat from the carcass because it's less efficient to put on fat rather than lean tissue. So that was the exercise, looking to see, well, what would happen. But I actually said to the guys, well, actually, if we look at today and we look at the improvements that we're making today, where are our CO2 improvements coming from? Which traits are they coming from? And thankfully, it fit in with the exercise that we just did. If you look, by far the biggest impact that we're having at the moment, this is the CO2 equivalents per finisher per year improvement that we make every year. Food conversion ratio in our sire lines, we're basically dropping that around about 4 kilos of CO2. Carcass yield, around about between 1 and 1.5 kilos of CO2. And finisher mortality at the end, I think you're around about 1.5 again. So those three traits are having a huge impact in terms of CO2 equivalent improvements through our current selection index. So we've also looked at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and again, a slightly different definition of sustainability to see actually the work that we're doing at Top Pigs Norsvin, where we actually contribute to those. And we've identified a number of those where we contribute to, whether it through our actions as our business in terms of investing in rural economies, or whether or not the work that we're doing to providing low-cost accessible protein across the world, or actually being able to produce that protein more sustainably. We also have a huge effect on land use, because obviously not only are our animals on the land, but actually they're consuming products from the land as well. But to try and actually summarize this, of how you should actually look at this at the end, or what you should probably take away, the genetic improvement in itself is sustainable. And what we have to be careful of as a breeding company is that we don't put too much emphasis on one individual trait, because that quite often leads to an unsustainable, you push an animal to go into a direction that is not natural, it's not compensated by the other traits that are actually need to develop alongside it. And therefore, we need to use this balanced breeding, multi-trait selection in a much more sustainable development goal, which might mean that we make slightly slower progress in your favorite trait, but in the long term, we actually produce a more rounded animal. If CO2 equivalents had an economic value, we would very easily be able to incorporate that into our selection indexes. And what would mean is that we would end up with much greater focus on food conversion ratio and finisher mortality, because if you're producing environmentally sustainable pork, those are the two traits that I would urge you to go for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Walling. Audience, are there any questions? If not, I saw you mention the 51 traits that you're selecting for. I saw a presentation last week, coincidentally, where one of them, osteochondrosis, was discussed about, and I know that for a fact that with Topics Northfin they use also the CT scanning, which is a fantastic story in itself. Would you mind sharing briefly how that is all working?
Yeah, so at our two boar testing sites, one in Canada and one in Norway, all the boars that are actually tested at the end of test then get put through a CT scanner, and you can get a bone density measurement from that. And from that bone density, if anyone's had an elderly grandmother or something, they might have been tested as well, you can then get an idea of their potential for osteoporosis, that weakening of the bones. But we know it's really important, particularly in productive sows. As you get larger litters, you've got much more calcium going into that milk, and therefore we want to make sure that we're selecting animals with stronger bones, because if those animals aren't looked after and we don't do that, then the prospect of basically having broken femurs on animals is really not a good message for pig production, and it's not profitable and not sustainable in the long term for pig farming.
Excellent, yeah, and it's just not, because of all these analysis, you can see that you really know the animals that you're using for breeding.
Yeah, for sure. We know exactly what they are, and we know where they are, and we know what we want to select for, but more important, we also know what we want to avoid.
I see. There's a question.
Thanks. I'm a little bit curious because you say that the FCR metric is potentially more important than the reproduction when it comes to environmental impact. What about the sow's utilization of feed while sustaining reproduction?
Actually, if the sow's producing actually a decent sized litter, actually the impact of the sow is relatively small compared to the food conversion ratio of the finisher. So if you look at, ultimately there's a multiplication effect there, because actually you have a litter, and then basically the amount that finisher pig then actually consumes, it's far more important. It basically ends up being far more important to actually concentrate on the FCR of the finisher, and then making sure that sow stays healthy. In which case, the priority for the sow is not actually on a sort of a feed efficiency thing. It's very much on the finisher itself.
I had one last question, if allowed. You also mentioned robustness as a characteristic. I suppose that, especially here in Asia, there is some viruses going around, so animals being able to resist that also has a definite a sustainability component there. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so obviously one of the measures of robustness is basically making sure you don't die, but the other thing is making sure that you maintain performance in that challenge environment. And really important in a lot of Asian markets where you have endemic disease in the background, you don't want it to hit. So a lot of the work that we're now doing is taking pedigreed animals and put them on challenged farms, and then collect the data from those and feed it back into our breeding program. Because in the past, we often used very clean nucleus farms, and therefore we never actually got that data. So we now develop robustness with known challenges to known diseases, PRRS being one in particular that we use quite widely. And what we actually see is that we can develop a general robustness, because the variation that we see between animals is quite significant. In some situations, you can see sires where basically you will have a 50% mortality to a disease, and another sire that basically has a less than 0.1% mortality to a disease. And that's the influence that they're actually having on that, on their offspring. And from that, we can then put it into our system.
I think it's clear which one you're going to use there for breeding, yeah. Yeah, I think we draw it to an end here. Thank you very much, and join me for a big round of applause. Right. Well, I'm going to close off now just with a few words. We've just heard from Dr. Sakdeed, who explained how important sustainability is for beta grow, with an emphasis on your antibiotics reduction programs. We've heard about the way to use probiotics, for instance. They can have an effect on partially replacing enzymes, for instance. And we've just heard the importance of sustainability in a breeding program as well. I'd like to remind you that in case you would like to review this webinar, or you'd like to seminar, or you would like to suggest it to somebody else, it is available at www.pigprogress.net or at our YouTube channel. To search for Pig Progress and you will find it. And you will also find a recording of yesterday's seminar devoted to gut health. Later today at 4 p.m, our sister title, Poultry World, will also hold a seminar, and then that topic is optimizing digestion in poultry production. That will be just a few doors to the right in Jupiter number 8. For now, I'd like to thank our speakers, Dr. Sakdeed Anulon Sombat, Dr. Lea Lubert Berghensen, and Dr. Grant Walling for their excellent presentation. I'd like to thank the audience for being with us and hopefully see you soon at the next seminar. Thank you.